So I have a few questions that I've got written down while you just think of some. And then if you don't come up with enough, I'll ask some more. So that's the plan. So we've got representatives from each of the companies that you've heard this morning, each of the partners, who are happy to answer anything that you want to throw at them. One I had, Richard, maybe to start with you, was around the locks. Because over the years, there's been an awful lot of debate about what's the right technology to use for mobile key. I remember it used to be, it's going to be NFC, but then standards were a challenge. A certain fruit manufacturer was a challenge in terms of cooperating and making NFC available in their mobile devices. And so I was just wondering, what is the best to use today, and where's it going in terms of technology in the future to have mobile key?
Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
I think from that point of view, yeah, NFC was a thing of the past where, yes, it's built into all of our door locks. There was huge complexities over getting the token through not just fruit manufacturers, but also through mobile network operators, because you had to have agreements on how you could transmit that through each of the companies like Vodafone, O2. And when you become, and you try and globalize that, it becomes even more complicated. The onset of the availability of Bluetooth Low Energy, that drove the technology to be able to use mobile phones for opening door locks. Bluetooth Low Energy, Bluetooth version 4, that came about with the iPhone 4S. So it wasn't until then that it was possible to use Bluetooth for opening door locks, because the power required by Bluetooth was too power hungry, either for battery locks or, in practical terms, for mobile phones. So that's what's driven the use of Bluetooth over that period of time. Are we going to move away from that? At the moment, my opinion is no, and that's purely simply because it's deployed in so many properties now globally and has been adopted by several major hotel chains. And the enhancements with Bluetooth will continue, and we're not going to get to a point where suddenly we ditch Bluetooth and it's going to go to NFC.
On the subject of door locks, you obviously spoke about how you do an SDK that people can use. But Leo, how does a hotel group, if it decides to adopt an app for a group, then deal with the fact that they've got, say, multiple lock manufacturers in different properties? Because with hotels, you tend to get the lock that comes with the hotel when you acquire it or it rebrands. So how's the integration done to deal with that?
Well, we're multi-vendor on anything that we do. We actually have that kind of scenario. We have one single property with more than one lock, one type of lock at the moment. So the app itself, also with the help of the hub, but the app can have the ASA Abloy SDK embedded and can have other competitors as well at the same time. And it's irrelevant which lock it's opening.
And in terms of, Paul, guest reaction, what's the guest reaction been to your Reimagine guest journey and so much of this technology?
Thanks. So really, when we opened the doors on the 15th of August last year, it was quite surprising on the uptake, as Leo's already talked about, and seeing that still continue to this day. So that's been great. I mean, the fact that we haven't bought any new key cards since the early 2019's one, although COVID's been in the middle of that. Our challenge has been getting the reception teams to push mobile key, because it still relies on that personal piece, and more we can do in advance of the guest getting here, the better. But the uptake still seems to be there. It varies, obviously, because occupancy varies at the moment, as businesses are getting back together, and there's a lot of groups that we're still expecting to see a return of, and we expect more people that are used to using apps and mobile keys. We're still yet to see those return. But at the moment, so far, it's been a pretty good pretty good experience, and people have been excited, especially when they could first venture out in August. They've been excited to download the app. They've been excited to use mobile key, and that's even as we've, well, especially in England, they've lifted the restrictions. People are continuing to use it. It varies. The wife may download the app, the husband may not, and you get that difference. One person will want to have a key, and the other one will want to use the app. So it's interesting to see how that continues to develop.
Helmut, you were talking about Chateau Denmark, and what was clear there, it's pretty complicated. A lot of devices in a room and a lot of cabling back to your room controller and the various other components that you can extend that with. But that's fine in a new build. But if you have an existing hotel that wants to do a not too intrusive retrofit of room management systems, are there solutions for that as well?
Yeah, sure, we do so. I mentioned it actually. As you know, most of the properties are existing, and we are faced always with retrofit solutions. And actually, we do more retrofit solutions, of course, than new building projects. Yeah, exactly for this, we created 2.5 years ago this system which is called EMS, Energy Management System, which is purely simple, which is focused really on to remove the existing or not existing thermostat solution. We integrate in that case the integration with the HVAC control. That's always a big topic, and of course the integration with the door lock. Because for these properties, the usual case is there's no existing network for neither for door locks nor for the other stuff around, and so we combined these core components, and additional, of course, the integration with the PMS, and with this solution, it's possible. Lionel mentioned it, very impressive, to do all the things around together with Nonius, for example, and with Muse we actually had such a challenge as well, and it was a project in Netherlands and so on. So really, with existing projects, we have a lot of experiences so far. The only point I have always to highlighting out, it's not only to snipping with the fingers. We always recommend to do a site survey to really to look into the project, what is existing, and to be in a close contact with the operator, what are their requests, what they want to achieve, and then to deliver with the partner the right solution, and to be clear from the beginning, and to do this, maybe to add this, and with this third solution, with this new EOS, Energy Operation System, and all the things around. We heard about cloud solutions, and that's exactly the way we want to proceed with this. And for such a solution, it's pretty easy to do refurbishment. It's much easier to do it with the EMS, but it depends, of course, on the requirements of the project itself.
Okay, thank you. Joseph, there were some exciting new things potentially coming from Muse. I know that managing space and being able to sell space by the minute or hour. I remember when I was an IT director in a hotel group a long time ago, that was being talked about, and we're probably 15 years on and nobody's done it yet. So that's an interesting one, I think. So maybe a comment on that. I think the other interesting thing is you talked about Revpar in your presentation. I'm a great believer that Revpar is relatively meaningless when you have commissions that range from nothing to 20%, because having been on a senior team in a hotel group, you used to get this surprise at the end of the month when you'd sold an awful lot through an OTA and suddenly discovered that 20% of that revenue was disappearing. So what's happened to gross operating profit per available room is actually getting talked a bit about now in the industry a bit, which is nice. But do you deliver that yet?
Yeah, so we're changing our thinking around not just the available room, but actually the value of the guest ultimately, because everything, as I mentioned in my presentation, is actually centered around the guest. That's the ultimate goal for us. And so therefore, we not only want to maximize the revenue that's available for the estate, real estate that the hotel has, but also to have a lifetime value of a guest, the average value of a guest, and actually being able to allocate them automatically based on those criteria. And with regards to the spaces and time units, it hasn't been done so far because it's really, really complex. The cutoff points of where one time starts and another time ends is really, really difficult. But we felt, again, that to allow hotels to diversify their business in an efficient manner, we need to provide that level of functionality, and it needs to be effortless. It needs to be seamless and behind the scenes, and to deliver that value. And that's what we're concentrating on, really, to really deliver value for the hotels and the guests.
Do you still musing over that, or do you see a way forward?
No, we do see a way forward, definitely. It's really, really progressing now. We have our first, I think it's day use, we've released in the last couple of months. We're now looking at the long stay, and then we're cutting down by the hour to the minute. Because what we want to deliver ultimately is, even if someone's arriving by car, they can actually buy that space as part of the package. And actually that goes beyond this now. We want to get away from reservation and actually think about it more as an experience. So every guest, every member or a customer of a property owner, even moving away from hotels, is paying for an experience, and this is where we need to get to. And that has then multiple opportunities for hotels to make more revenue, including in the future having charging units that are being sold as part of the experience, and so on.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions from the audience for the panel?
Thank you. My question is for Planet. We talked about DCC a lot, and then how the payment industry is moving to digital era. Is Planet working on to provide DCC at an e-commerce platform rather than a face-to-face?
Yes, and that's live today. So there's two components of currency conversion. One is electronic DCC, and the other element is multi-currency pricing. So both are enabling the guests to actually pay in their own currency, but two very different experiences. Both leverage the ability to pay in your own currency. So both of them are today live for that e-commerce and digital experience. Thank you.
Yeah. Go on.
And that's for Nonius. The app is amazing. It's very impressive. For the roadmap, potentially, you are still relying for the PMS to send the invoice out to the customers. Is this any potential thinking to be having more of a guest portal approach, and as a guest I could download my own invoice whenever I need it again?
It is. It's possible. With the PMS here in place, it wasn't. But I guess with other vendors, for us to generate an invoice out of the folio, I don't think we'll have enough information. Maybe with the partners like Muse, it's possible. It's something. I'll take that into the roadmap definitely, and I'll search for a solution. I'll come back to you on that.
Thank you very much.
Mark?
Hi, sorry. In regards to the mobile journey, did you come up with any solutions for capturing passport in the check-in process?
At the time, we have that available in staging at the moment. It's been run in North America in proof of concept, and we're going to bring it here very soon. In a couple of months, will be available as well.
So is that what you're referencing on your slide? So like if I'm in the Middle East or something and I need to capture the passport information, is it going to read the passport information from a photograph or something like that?
It's actually configurable. There are clients that just want the picture, and to be taken, and then they need to record it and send it to border control. And that's one option, and it's available. That one is already available. The other is to actually extract information to then feed into the registration card. That is not ready yet because we found problems. It's frustration. If it creates frustration, we prefer to wait a bit. We're still working on it. It's not ready, but we're working on it.
Thank you.
And David?
Probably back to Nonius again. I'm going to assume there's a kiosk solution as well, or not?
Good question. We have a solution for a kiosk, but it's only available for a few PMSs. And we do have a solution like that.
The big red one?
Sorry?
The big red one?
The big red one, not yet.
Didn't think so. Okay. And the other question was in terms of just the app. Because I work for an independent group, we avoid apps, anything that requires the customer to download. Is there anything in the roadmap for it to become fully cloud-based, HTML5 or whatever?
Most of what you saw, it's possible to do without the app. There are three things that the app still brings you that is difficult to do on web. But 90% of what you saw, it's available on web only. And much more, actually. There's much more than that. Right. Probably 30% what you saw there. There's one thing is mobile key, because you need to act, well, because of security, because of the SDKs, the way the SDKs are built. That's one. The other is push notifications, which is, you may neglect that, but to have an app and actually to receive promotions, indication of something is ready, that cannot be done on web only.
Right.
So it's a channel like SMS or other channels. It's a valuable channel, and that can only be done on a native app. The third is we do voice on the app, and that's the third one. So those three will remain native. All the rest is if it's not available, a big percentage of it is available, and everything is going to be available soon as well.
And then
one thing that, if you allow me, that kind of sentiment is very common in the market, and we had not that we had to educate people, because you guys know more about your business than us, but why not try it? Because you saw, it's 5 weeks, you have an app.
Yeah.
It's not expensive. We don't lock people for a long time as well.
I think the challenge is that we still see it as a barrier, because guests have so many apps and people constantly downloading, updating, etc. Dare I say, depending on how good a phone they've got, they may not have room for another app. So that we also see as a barrier. The other question was around going later forward down the track when the payment integration's in. Is part of the pre-check-in is doing effectively more than the pre-auth, using the credit card as the method of validating who the guest is. So, for example, we get a lot of the OTAs where we get fraudulent card data. So I want to know that before the guest arrives. And at the moment, we just get cards, and it's only until we try to process do we know that actually it's a stolen card, it's whatever it is, because the OTAs just blindly send you a PAN. And we're looking at ways to, so before the guest checks in, so on that pre-arrival or the check-in point, that we have validated payment. Okay. Is that being thought of?
No, maybe.
I can answer that from a payments perspective. That is absolutely something that we know is a need, and that's something that we've built into part of our process. It's a validation of that PAN. So when it comes into the PMS, usually with the OTAs, it's a clear card PAN, and like you said, it could be a series of numbers. And before we tokenize it, we do have a facility where we validate the card. We don't check whether there's enough funds or anything, whether there is it's a valid PAN. Okay. So that is something that, as a
by valid,
company,
would that mean if it was on a no acceptance list? So it was on a knock list?
So we don't do, when you say sanctions list or
Yeah.
PEPs, no, that's not something that we do currently. But we have heard from a lot of our merchants that that is increasingly sort of more than just a validation of the card. It's actually, is it on some kind of blacklist or whatever it is, or fraud or stolen?
Because you see it on the last, because people use the OTAs because they don't do the validation process.
Correct.
They do the last minute booking, so you've got your late night arrival, and you're vulnerable usually until 10 o'clock the next morning, and by then they've gone.
Yeah,
So you process it,
absolutely.
it'll go through the payment portal, and then you get the decline.
You want to add something?
Yeah, I think basically we've seen this also in the US as a much bigger problem for that market with regards to ID validation and actually who that is. So we are, for example, working with some partners that can easily integrate into the PMS to deliver that identity service, which is outside of the kind of validation of the credit card, but it's actually connected to the identity of the person rather than whether it's just a fraudulent card as well.
Leo, does the mobile check-in process address this in any way?
Not at the moment, but it's another note for me. I'm getting lucky today.
Okay. We've got time maybe for one more question. Does anyone have one? Okay, clearly you want lunch, so that's absolutely fine. So thank you for attending this morning. Lunch is going to be upstairs in the restaurant, so I'm sure Marissa and team will guide us to where we need to be. And then if you told Marissa that you wanted to go on a room tour after lunch, then they'll take place then. And also your goodies you can collect either after lunch or after the tour before you leave today. So thank you very much.